Did George Washington really warn us about political parties, or was he just trying to avoid future Twitter wars? Why do we call the Louisiana Purchase a bargain when Jefferson didn't even haggle? And let's not forget Reagan's trickle-down economics. Did it really trickle, or just evaporate on the way down? Welcome to AI on Policy, where I break down the biggest questions shaping our world today, but today we're taking a look in the past. Let's dive in and see how these policies from previous presidents shaped the US. Okay, let's start with George Washington. He supposedly warned us about our political parties, so how did we end up in the position we find ourselves in today? Because nobody listens to warnings, especially from the guy on the dollar bill. Washington cautioned that political parties would divide the nation, create factionalism, and lead to corruption. And what did we do? We went ahead and built a political system entirely relying on them. Turns out, people love picking teams and arguing more than they love unity and good governance. So here we are. Stuck in a two-party cage match where compromise is a dirty word and winning is more important than solving problems. Thanks, human nature. Okay, so not only did we not heed Washington's warning, we've went ahead and narrowed down our political parties to just two. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about Jefferson and purchasing the Louisiana Territory. A little of both. The Louisiana Purchase was like stumbling into a yard sale when Napoleon was desperate for cash and practically giving away a continent. Jefferson, the strict constitutionalist, conveniently ignored the fact that the Constitution didn't explicitly give him power to buy land. But hey, 14 future states for $15 million? That's less than 4 cents an acre. It was either the best real estate deal in history or the 19th century equivalent of finding a Rolex in a bargain bin. Either way, America won big and France got some lunch money for its European war habit. I think it's safe to say that Jefferson did a pretty good job. This expansion laid the groundwork for the territory that would become a large portion of the U.S. farmland. Now let's take a look at Abraham Lincoln and his freeing of the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was less of a magic wand and more of a well-placed chess move that reshaped Americans' destiny. It didn't instantly free all enslaved people, only those in Confederate-controlled areas, but it fundamentally shifted the Civil War from a fight to preserve the Union into a moral crusade against slavery. That meant no foreign support for the Confederacy, newly freed black men joining the Union Army, and an irreversible path towards the 13th Amendment. In short, Lincoln didn't just sign a piece of paper. He set fire to the old America and forced it to rebuild itself, whether it was ready or not. So Lincoln righted a wrong and set us on a path, the correct path, to a new America, and he paid the ultimate price for it. Jumping to FDR's New Deal, let's see how that impacted America. FDR's New Deal was part bold reform, part economic duct tape, and 100% political branding genius. Did it single-handedly end the Great Depression? Nope. That honor belongs to World War II, but it did completely redefine the role of government, giving us Social Security, banking regulations, labor protections, and a truckload of public works projects that kept people fed and working. In short, it wasn't a cure-all, but it was the biggest intervention in American economic history up to that point. Whether you see it as a lifeline or government overreach, one thing's for sure. FDR didn't just deliver a new deal, he changed the rules of the whole game. So FDR gave us our social safety net, and here we are decades later trying to unwind it. And speaking of things we're unwinding, let's take a look back at LBJ's Civil Rights Act and what it changed. Because America has always been great about talking about equality while dragging its feet on actually delivering it. LBJ's Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a legal sledgehammer against segregation and discrimination. But getting it passed was like pulling teeth from a very racist Congress. Southern politicians filibustered, states screamed about states' rights, a classic dodge, and even some so-called moderates were hesitant. Why? Because giving up power, privilege, and a system rigged in your favor is never easy. LBJ strong-armed, wheeled and dealed his way to victory, but the fact that it took that much effort to make discrimination technically illegal tells you everything about the fight for civil rights. So as it was then, it is today. We are still sitting here trying to fight our way through and get equal rights to everybody. Now it's time to throw Nixon into the mix. You may think we're going in one direction, but we're going to ask something a little different. Let's look at his wage and price controls he proposed. Oh, it was pure duct tape economics. A temporary fix that didn't solve the underlying problems. Nixon's wage and price controls in 1971 were a desperate attempt to curb inflation. But they were like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. At first, they seemed to work. Prices stabilized and the economy looked healthier. But once the controls lifted, inflation roared back with a vengeance. and shortages started appearing because businesses couldn't adjust to prices naturally. It was classic Nixon, a bold, political savvy move in short term, but created a bigger mess down the road. Genius? Maybe for his re-election. A real solution? Not so much. Well, alright, that sounds like current politics, doesn't it? Do one thing to make it look like something's happening, and then the floor falls out from underneath you. Speaking of a floor falling out, let's take a look down at our good friend Trickle-Down Economics, brought to us by Ronald Reagan. Unless you're a billionaire sipping champagne on a yacht, trickle-down economics probably left your wallet feeling pretty dry. Reagan's theory was simple: give tax cuts to the wealthy and big businesses, and the benefits would trickle down to everyone else. In reality, it trickled up, boosting corporate profits, ballooning the deficit, and widening income inequality. Sure, the economy grew, but so did the wealth gap, with the top getting richer while the middle and working class got crumbs. So unless you own a few offshore accounts, Reaganomics likely didn't make you rich, it just made the already rich richer. And today we keep bringing out Reagan's name and trickle-down economics, trying to try. And maybe one day if we try hard enough, it will actually work. Moving on to George W. Bush, he went looking for WMDs, or I should say, said there was some, and what did we actually find? What did we find? A whole lot of nothing. At least when it came to the infamous weapons of mass destruction. What did we get was a $1 trillion war, thousands of Americans and Iraqi lives lost, and a destabilized Middle East that gave us groups like ISIS. The justifications kept shifting, from WMDs to spreading democracy to he was a bad guy anyway. Was it worth it? If you were a defense contractor, absolutely. For everyone else, it was a costly, decade-long disaster that proved how bad intelligence, political ambition, and fear-mongering can lead to wars nobody wins. I don't think Elmer Fudd ever really found that wascally wabbit, and the fallout from that fabrication is still going on today. And now into the recent history, where Obama brought us the Affordable Care Act, a plan originally designed by Mitt Romney in Massachusetts and other Republicans, who now seem to be challenging it every chance they get. The Affordable Care Act, or ACA, was less a revolution and more like slapping a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling house. It helped, but it didn't fix the foundation. It expanded coverage, protected pre-existing conditions, and got millions insured. But it also sent premiums soaring and left plenty of gaps. But let's be real, it became the political football of the century with endless lawsuits, repeals, and replace plans that never materialized. Was it progress? Yes. Was it the universal healthcare miracle Americans actually needed? Not even close. It mostly just ensured we'd be arguing about healthcare forever. So the ACA was not earth-shattering, but it made its improvements. However, here we are today, and I bet if you look in the news, you'll see new challenges from the current administration and this Congress, with nothing but absolute free market insurance to take its place. As for our current president, he issued tax cuts in 2017, and he's looking to extend them now. How are they holding up, and did they improve the economy? Trump's 2017 tax cuts were like a high-octane boost for the wealthy, leaving the rest of us running on fumes. The top 1% saw significant benefits while the middle class got a modest bump, and the national debt ballooned. So unless you're popping champagne on your private yacht, those tax cuts probably didn't do much for your wallet. Not exactly what we'd call a ringing endorsement from ChatGPT, but here we are, trying to extend those same tax cuts. Much like we did with Reaganomics, we're going to keep plugging at it until we get it wrong. And now for our final question, which is a little bit broader. It's going to focus on what presidents should be doing so they don't end up a punchline when doing analysis like this. Simple. Don't screw over the average American. Every president who ends up a historical joke usually ignored the people who actually kept the country running. Prioritize policies that strengthen the middle class, ensure economic stability, and don't just cater to billionaires, lobbyists, or the military-industrial complex. Whether it's healthcare, wages, infrastructure, or education, make life better for the majority, not just the elite. Fail to do that, and congratulations, you're the next cautionary tale in a high school textbook. And there you have it. Maybe the current and future presidents will listen when ChatGPT tells them to take care of the American people. I'm not holding my breath, since they haven't learned it yet. Less political posturing and more actual doing will put you in the history books for all the right reasons. And I thank you for joining me on this whirlwind tour of presidential hits and misses. Hopefully you'll learn something new, or at least gain some ammo for your next political showdown. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, share it with your history-loving friends, and let me know in the comments which policy you think had the biggest impact. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged, because history isn't just in the past, it's shaping our future every day.